The sun rose like a slow breath over the grasslands of Ooh. Golden light spilled across the hills, touching the crystal dew and the broken remains of ancient towers. Somewhere in that stillness, two friends were waking. Finn, the human boy with dreams larger than the horizon, and Jake, the shape-shifting dog who could stretch his laughter across mountains. Buzz. Their treehouse hummed softly in the morning air. Birds sang in spirals. The scent of toasted bread drifted up through the wooden floorboards. For a moment, the world was perfect, held together by warmth and quiet, as if time itself had decided to rest. But beneath this calm, there was always a whisper. The land of O was not simply a kingdom of magic and candy and talking rain clouds. It was a tapestry woven from endings and beginnings, a world reborn from a forgotten war, where every stone remembered what once was. And on mornings like this, when the sky seemed too gentle to be real, Finn sometimes felt it, that soft vibration beneath the soil, like the hum of an old story waiting to be told. Pause. Finn and Jake wandered into the valley that day, chasing a rumor of singing stones. The wind carried the scent of lilacs and something older, a metallic sweetness like rusted time. Jake stretched lazily, his golden fur glinting in the sunlight.
Man, he murmured, you ever think the world's got like layers we can't see?
Finn smiled, tucking his sword behind his back. Yeah, like dreams stacked on top of each other. They didn't know it then, but they were right. The valley they entered was not marked on any map. The grass shimmered faintly as if light and memory had been woven together. Each step echoed in a strange, hollow way, like stepping through the spaces between dreams. The singing stones weren't stones at all, but remnants of the old world, fragments of pre-war machines still whispering the lullabies of forgotten humans. Finn pressed his hand to one of them. It vibrated softly beneath his palm, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. Jake tilted his head.
Think it's alive?
Finn didn't answer. He just closed his eyes, listening. And in that moment, something within him stirred. Not fear, not excitement, but recognition. A feeling that somewhere deep inside he had touched this silence before, or as they sat among the ruins, the wind shifted and the valley seemed to breathe. The light dimmed slightly, turning from gold to honey. A single leaf floated down and landed between them. Jake caught it and turned it over. It shimmered like glass, patterns spiraling through its veins.
Everything's weird, he chuckled softly.
Yeah, Finn replied, but it's a good kind of weird. Then he looked out at the horizon, and for just an instant he saw something else beyond the sunlight.
A faint image like a reflection seen through fog.
A shadow of another world layered atop Ooh, and he thought, maybe this isn't the only morning that ever was. The air smelled faintly of cinnamon and static. A gentle hum rolled through the valley. Time seemed to fold inward, and a thought drifted across Finn's mind. What if every sunrise is a memory trying to return? What if the world is dreaming just like we do? And sometimes it dreams of us. Pause. As the day grew warmer, Finn and Jake lay on the grass. The clouds drifted slowly across the blue, taking the shapes of old heroes and strange beasts. Finn pointed at one that looked like a crown. Jake said it looked more like a smile. Both were right, and in that shared silence, something deeper unfolded. The first secret of Ooh, that the world itself was alive.
And in every blade of grass, every floating cloud,
there was a pulse, a memory of creation still singing softly beneath the noise of everyday life force. As the sun began to descend, painting the valley in long strokes of amber and pink, Finn whispered, "Do you think we'll ever know what it all means, Jake?" Jake yawned. "Maybe, but maybe it's better to just feel it, you know? Like music," Finn smiled, his eyes closing. "Yeah, Like music, the valley responded with a faint hum, so low it could barely be heard, as though the earth itself was agreeing. And when the last light faded, the singing stones grew silent again, holding their secret close for another 1,000 years. Pause. As night rose over the stars shimmered like lanterns of memory. Somewhere far away, an ancient voice stirred in the darkness. Watching, waiting. The adventure had only begun.
But in that moment, everything was still, and so,
under the calm breath of the sky, Finn and Jake drifted into sleep, unaware that their dreams would soon carry them far beyond the valley, into the deeper mysteries of their world. Pause. Night had settled upon the land like a velvet blanket, and the stars above shimmered in hushed conversation. Beneath their light, the forest murmured, an endless whisper of leaves, roots, and secret memories. Every tree seemed to breathe, and every shadow pulsed with slow, ancient thought. Finn and Jake awoke to the cool hush of twilight. Their campfire had long faded into soft embers, their edges glowing faintly like sleepy eyes. The scent of pine and rain filled the air. Somewhere far away, a night bird sang a single trembling note, as if calling the world to dream. Pause. They had wandered deeper into the forest than they had meant to. The valley of morning was gone now, hidden behind hills and memory. Around them rose trees older than time, their trunks wide enough to cradle forgotten worlds. The air shimmered faintly, heavy with unseen things. Jake stretched his limbs into shapes both impossible and familiar.
"Dude," he said softly, "this forest feels—"
Awake, Finn nodded. "It's like it's thinking." He pressed his hand to the bark of the nearest tree. It was warm,
faintly pulsing like a heartbeat. As they walked,
a faint mist began to gather, curling around their feet like curious spirits. The path twisted and folded upon itself, as though the forest were drawing them deeper. Every now and then, a flicker of light would drift through the trees. Not fireflies, but dreams, wandering loose from sleeping creatures. Finn watched one float by. A tiny glowing orb, containing within it the image of a rabbit sleeping beneath a log. It shimmered softly, then vanished.
"Dreams," Jake murmured.
"They're alive here." Finn looked up at the canopy. The stars above were barely visible now, veiled by the breathing mist. Maybe the forest dreams too. Pause. In the dreaming forest, the line between thought and reality was thin as silk. The trees hummed softly, with echoes of things that had once been imagined. Adventures never lived, songs never sung, wishes whispered and forgotten. Jake tilted his head, his ears twitching. "You hear that?" Finn paused. Beneath the rustle of leaves came a faint melody, distant yet tender, like a lullaby half-remembered. It wove through the air in spirals, tugging at their hearts. Without speaking, they followed it. It led them to a clearing where the moonlight pooled like silver water. In the center stood a colossal tree. Its roots spread across the clearing like rivers of light, its trunk carved with spiraling symbols that seemed to move when one wasn't looking. The melody came from within it. Finn stepped closer, running his fingers across the bark. The wood thrummed beneath his touch. For a brief instant he saw images, flashes of memory not his own, a burning sky, waves of color sweeping across the land, a crown sinking beneath the sea, and a single human child crying in the ruins. Then silence. Jake placed a hand on his shoulder. "You okay, buddy?" Finn took a slow breath.
"It showed me something, like a dream that wasn't mine." Jake's voice softened.
"Maybe it's the world's dream." Pause. They sat beneath the great tree, their backs against its glowing roots. The night deepened around them and the melody continued, now soft as a heartbeat. Finn closed his eyes. Do you think dreams ever die? Jake thought for a moment.
No, I think they just change shape. Maybe a dream gets tired of being a dream and turns into a star.
Or a tree, or maybe...
A guy like you? Finn smiled faintly.
And maybe I was someone's dream once. Could be, Jake said, chuckling quietly. You're pretty dreamlike sometimes. Pause. The forest sighed, a long, low exhale that stirred the mist into slow motion. Finn opened his eyes and saw faint silhouettes forming among the fog, gentle figures made of moonlight and memory drifting through the clearing. They were not ghosts, nor were they fully alive, but something in between.
Echoes of dreamers past.
One of them knelt beside Finn and placed a hand, weightless and cold, upon his chest. He felt warmth spread through him, a strange calm. And then the figure was gone. The forest seemed to whisper in that same moment, "Remember the heart of the world." Finn's eyes widened.
Did you hear that?
Jake blinked. Hear what?
The forest. It spoke. Jake tilted his head.
Maybe it's just your dream talking back. Pause, and perhaps it was. For in the dreaming forest every thought found its echo and every question shaped its own answer. They sat there a long time, listening to the slow symphony of the night. The hum of insects, the sighing leaves, the pulse of the living trees. Then Finn whispered, almost to himself, if the world dreams, who dreams the dreamer? The forest offered no reply, only the faint sound of a single drop of water falling somewhere deep below. Pause. As the hours passed, the mist began to fade. The moon climbed higher, its light turning pale and cold. Jake yawned, curling into a soft golden coil beside his friend.
Man, he murmured, this place is trippy.
But kinda nice. Finn nodded, watching the glow fade slowly from the great tree's roots.
It feels sad, he said quietly.
Like it's remembering something it lost. Jake blinked sleepily. Yeah, maybe it misses its own dream. The words lingered in the air, and as Finn gazed into the forest, into the endless folds of shadow and mist, he thought about the lives that had come before, the stories whispered and forgotten, and how the land itself seemed to cradle them like a lullaby. He thought about the ruins in the valley, the singing stones, and now this dreaming forest. Each seemed connected, threads in a vast tapestry of memory. Perhaps wasn't just a place. Perhaps it was a mind, vast and ancient, dreaming itself into being again and again as... Finn leaned back, eyes half closed. The night pressed gently against him, cool and alive. Somewhere in the distance, an owl called, a sound that seemed to mark the passing of an age. He whispered, if everything dreams, maybe nothing ever really ends. And with that thought he drifted towards sleep. The trees swayed lightly as though singing to him. The mist folded in, tender as a blanket. The last thing he felt before slipping away was Jake's soft breathing beside him, steady, peaceful, like the rhythm of the world itself. Pause. The forest watched them. It had seen countless dreamers pass through its roots, each one searching for meaning, for rest, for the soft edge between waking and wonder. It had seen empires rise and fall, stars bloom and fade, heroes and monsters become stories, and stories become sleep. Now, as two small figures dreamed beneath its boughs, it hummed quietly to itself, a melody only the wind could carry. And somewhere, deep within the earth, a light stirred, the faint glimmer of something waiting to awaken. Pause. When the dawn came, it came slow and kind, spilling through the branches like liquid glass. Finn opened his eyes to find the forest still and serene. Jake snored softly beside him, the moss beneath them warm with sunlight. For a brief, golden moment, it felt as though the whole world were holding its breath. Then Finn stood, brushing the dew from his clothes.
"Come on, buddy," he said gently.
Let's see what the forest was dreaming about. Jake grumbled, stretched, and followed. As they walked deeper into the light, the trees whispered farewell in voices like sighing silk. The melody faded behind them, leaving only the echo of that single phrase. Remember the heart of the world, pause. And so they stepped out of the forest and into the next mystery, unaware that the world itself had been listening. The wind carried their laughter away into the horizon where another story waited to be told. Morning came in ripples. The air smelled faintly of salt and wildflowers as Finn and Jake followed a slow path down toward the coast. The dreaming forest had faded behind them, its canopy now only a whisper against the brightening sky. Ahead stretched the great sea, calm, endless, shimmering with light that moved like thought itself. The sound of waves was steady, rhythmic. Each one broke softly against the shore like the heartbeat of a sleeping god. Pause. The two friends stood at the edge of the sand, gazing out across the horizon. Jake stretched his arms high above his head, yawned, and said, "Smells like pancakes and secrets." Finn laughed quietly.
"I think it's trying to tell us something." The sea shimmered, the sunlight bending strangely across its surface.
Somewhere beneath, something glowed faintly, as if an entire world was breathing under the waves. Pause. Finn had heard rumors of this place, a city forgotten even by legend, resting at the bottom of the ocean. Some said it was built before the Great Mushroom War. Others whispered that it wasn't built at all, that it grew there, like coral shaped by dreams. Jake squinted toward the water.
"You think we could, breathe down there?"
Finn smiled.
"Only one way to find out." Jake grinned.
"All right, but if I turn into a sea cucumber, you gotta promise not to laugh." Outside, they stepped into the surf. The water was cool against their skin, filled with a faint hum, like distant singing. As they waded deeper, the melody grew clearer. Not words, but tones that resonated in their bones. It was the same rhythm they had heard in the valley's stones and the forest's roots. And when the waves closed above their heads, everything turned still. The world beneath the surface was slow and vast. Light moved in ribbons, bending and stretching like silk. Schools of fish drifted past in patterns that looked like constellations. The deeper they went, the quieter it became, until even their thoughts seemed to float in the water around them. Jake shaped himself into a long, sleek form, part dolphin, part imagination, and carried Finn through the depths. Bubbles spiraled upward behind them, catching the faint glow that seeped up from below. Then they saw it. Pause. The city beneath the waves, it was not like any city they knew. There were no sharp angles or towers of stone, only great domes of glassy coral, bridges made of light, and gardens of swaying kelp that shimmered like stained glass. The buildings seemed to move as though alive, bending gently with the tide. Everything pulsed in slow unison, like the chambers of a single heart. Finn stared in awe.
"It's beautiful." Jake's voice echoed faintly through the water.
Looks like a dream someone didn't want to wake up from. As they entered the city, tiny orbs of light drifted around them. Not bubbles, but memories. Each one held an image, a human walking along a shining street, a child releasing a balloon into the air, a scientist gazing up at the stars through glass walls. All of them faded when touched, like stories dissolving into sleep. Finn reached for one and felt a faint twinge of warmth in his chest.
"They were like us," he whispered.
Jake nodded. Maybe we're what they dreamed of next. They swam through what must have once been a plaza, a great circle of stone carved with spirals and constellations. At its center stood a massive statue, a human figure holding a sphere of light, eyes closed, face peaceful. Around its feet were smaller carvings, creatures of every kind looking upward as though in reverence. Finn floated closer. Who do you think they were? Jake tilted his head. Maybe the one who dreamed the ocean. Finn smiled faintly. Or the one who fell asleep beneath it. He pressed his hand against the statue's chest. A faint vibration answered. Light began to bloom within the sphere it held, slowly expanding until the whole plaza glowed with pale blue radiance. The water around them shimmered, and the city stirred. From the shadows emerged translucent figures, beings made of light and water, their shapes ever shifting. They did not speak, but their presence was kind. One approached Finn, brushing a hand of rippling light against his face. He felt a sudden rush of emotion, grief, awe, tenderness, as if the city itself was remembering. In that instant, he saw flashes behind his eyes, the sea rising over mountains, the last of humanity retreating into the depths, machines humming with the songs of survival, and the final dream. A wish for peace, for beauty, for stillness. Then, nothing but silence. The figure withdrew, and Finn felt tears, small, saltless, drift upward through the water. Jake floated beside him, quiet now.
Guess it's all that's left, he murmured.
Their dream. Finn looked around at the glowing city, its streets like veins of light. And it's still alive, Jake nodded. Yeah, maybe dreams don't die, they just
sink a little. Pause. They wandered the glowing avenues.
Gardens bloomed in colors unseen on land. Coral shaped like spirals of sound, flowers that opened to release laughter instead of scent. There were benches carved of crystal, each humming faintly as though playing the last notes of forgotten songs. The deeper they went, the quieter it became. The light dimmed until at last they reached a great door set into the ocean floor. A circle of obsidian inscribed with a single rune glowing faintly gold. Finn felt drawn to it. Jake's voice wavered through the stillness. You sure about this, buddy? Finn nodded.
I think this is what the world wants us to see. He placed his hand on the rune.
The symbol pulsed once, then opened like an eye, oars. A current swept them downward, gentle but unstoppable. The light around them dissolved into darkness until all that remained was the sound of their hearts, steady, echoing through the void. Then the darkness parted, revealing a cavern larger than any city above. In its center floated a massive sphere of water and light, swirling slowly as though dreaming. Within it, Finn saw visions, forests, deserts, clouds, laughter, every world that ever was. It was the ocean's heart. He understood suddenly what the forest had meant. Remember the heart of the world. This was it, not a place, but a memory of connection. The pulse that linked all living things, from the roots of trees to the waves on the shore, from the songs of birds to the dreams of humankind. Jake whispered, "It's
everyone," Finn nodded.
All the dreams.
All the lives.
Still here. Pause. They floated there for a long time, just watching. The sphere pulsed in rhythm with their breathing, as if acknowledging them. Finn reached out, and the surface rippled, gentle as a sigh. A single droplet detached, floating toward him. It shimmered in the dim light and then dissolved into his palm. He felt warmth, like sunlight beneath his skin, and a whisper echoed inside his mind. All worlds are remembered in the deep. The glow dimmed. The current began to rise again, pulling them slowly upward. As they ascended, the city beneath them faded into shadow, returning to its eternal dream. Pause. When Finn and Jake finally broke the surface, the sun was setting, painting the sea in gold and rose. They floated on their backs, breathing the cool air, the waves rocking them like a cradle. Jake exhaled.
That was... whoa.
Finn smiled faintly. It's strange.
I feel lighter, Jake nodded.
Guess we left some dreams behind. The tide carried them toward shore. The sand was warm when they reached it, and the sound of the sea grew softer, distant, as if the ocean were falling asleep too. Finn looked back once more. Somewhere beneath those waves, an ancient city dreamed on. A hymn of memory, still singing to the stars, or as he whispered, the heart of the world. Still beating, Jake yawned.
Yeah, man.
Just real slow. They sat together in silence as the first stars appeared overhead. The sea shimmered faintly, reflecting constellations that seemed to dance between water and sky. Finn leaned back on the sand. Where do you think we'll go next? Jake shrugged. Wherever the dream takes us. And with that, they closed their eyes, letting the lull of the waves pull them gently toward rest. As they drifted toward sleep, the world exhaled again, a quiet sigh across the sea, carrying whispers of other realms yet unseen. Beneath the surface, the city glowed once more, its pulse synchronized with the stars, and so the journey continued, unseen but unbroken, as the tide turned toward the next dream. Pause. The next morning arrived not with sunlight, but with sound. A chorus of wind and birdsong rose above the horizon, weaving through the branches and waves, calling to the two friends who still slept upon the shore. The sea whispered, the air shimmered, and the sky itself seemed alive, humming faintly like a harp being tuned by invisible hands. Finn stirred first. His hair was tousled by the breeze, his eyes half dreaming. The world around him glowed softly, everything bathed in the pale blue of dawn. Jake rolled onto his back, stretching lazily.
You hear that, dude?
Finn nodded.
It's like the sky's singing. Jake squinted upward. Sounds like old songs.
Kinda sad, but also pretty. The melody drifted across the sea, faint but unmistakable. Voices carried on the wind, each one echoing from somewhere high above the clouds. It felt less like music and more like memory, as Finn stood, brushing sand from his clothes. Maybe it's another dream, Jake grinned. Or maybe breakfast. But when they looked up, they saw the source, far above, suspended in the morning mist, was a massive shape glimmering with silver light. A floating island ringed by waterfalls that poured upward instead of down.
Its edges shimmered with faint rainbows. The Sky Kingdom, Finn whispered.
He didn't know how he knew the name. It simply arrived, like a forgotten song resurfacing from the depths of memory. Jake tilted his head. You think we can reach it? Finn smiled. We always do. Pause. The wind seemed to answer their intent. A column of light spiraled down from the clouds, wrapping them in warmth. They felt themselves lift gently, effortlessly, as though the air itself remembered how to carry them. Up they rose, higher and higher, through veils of mist and color. The world below grew distant, blurred, a painting slowly fading from view. The light shifted to gold, then silver, then pale blue, and at last they emerged into the Sky Kingdom. Pause. It was vast and still, stretching across the heavens like a dream made solid. Gardens floated on islands of crystal, linked by bridges of starlight. Rivers of mist flowed in slow, winding paths, each one humming a different tone. And everywhere, in the trees, the stones, even the air, There was music.
Not loud, not constant, but woven into the silence like threads of memory. Jake whistled softly. Man, this place has major chill vibes. Finn smiled.
It's like the whole sky is remembering something. They began to walk. The ground beneath them was soft, almost cloud-like, yet held their weight. As they moved, faint notes rose from each step. Low, warm tones that resonated through the air. Finn knelt, touching the surface.
It's alive, he whispered.
The ground.
It sings. Jake pressed his ear to the cloud path. Sounds like
Thousands of voices.
all blending together. Songs, Finn murmured.
Maybe the ones people forgot. Pause. They followed the melody through gardens of glass blossoms and silver reeds, where the air shimmered like morning dew. In one garden they found statues shaped like musicians, carved from translucent crystal, each frozen mid-song. The instruments they held were strange, harps of light, drums made of cloud, flutes grown from silver vines. When Finn brushed a finger across one of the flutes, it sang, a single, clear tone that made the air ripple. For a heartbeat, it felt as if the whole kingdom paused to listen. Jake spoke softly. What do you think happened to them? Finn's voice was gentle. Maybe they played until the sky remembered them.
And then they just
Became part of the song. Pause. As they wandered deeper, they reached a hall suspended between two clouds. It was enormous, open on all sides, its pillars made of wind, its ceiling the pure blue of endless sky. In the center stood a grand instrument unlike anything they had ever seen. It was both harp and tower, strings of light stretching upward into infinity, vibrating with a slow, eternal rhythm. The sound it made was not constant, but alive, rising and falling like breath. Finn approached, his heart slow and steady. Each string he passed hummed softly, and as he touched one, an image bloomed in his mind, a young princess gazing at the stars, a small robot singing to the moon, a candy child dancing alone in the dark. Each tone was a story, each vibration a life once sung and then forgotten. Jake floated beside him. It's all the songs people don't remember anymore. Finn nodded. Yeah, but they're still here.
every melody, every voice.
Still playing. Pause. He ran his hand along another string. The air shimmered, revealing a faint image. The Ice King, sitting alone at the edge of the world, humming softly into the cold. His crown glowed faintly, the sound trembling like snowflakes. Finn felt a pang of tenderness. He sang too, Jake nodded. Yeah, everyone sings even when they don't mean to. The string vibrated once more and fell silent, leaving behind only a soft echo. They lingered in the hall a long while. The music surrounded them, vast yet intimate, like being inside the heartbeat of the sky itself. And somewhere in that stillness, Finn felt something change inside him. It was as if a part of his heart that had always been silent was now humming quietly, joining the great harmony of the world. Pause. Then from far above came a voice. It was neither human nor divine, soft, ancient, and kind. You walk through the song of all things, it said, but do not forget, silence is also sacred. Finn looked up, searching the endless expanse. Who are you? The voice answered like wind across a chime. I am the echo of what once was, the keeper of songs that no one remembers. The harp pulsed with light. Every world sings as it lives, and every silence remembers its song. When a melody ends, it does not die. It rests in the sky, waiting to be heard again. Jake tilted his head.
So, the sky's a giant jukebox of forgotten vibes?
The voice chuckled softly, the sound like distant thunder rolling through silk. Yes, and every heart carries its own chord. Pause. Finn closed his eyes and listened. He could hear it now, faint but clear, a single tone rising from within himself. It mingled with the air, with the sound of the harp, with the pulse of the clouds. For the first time he realized he had always been part of this song. And in that moment he understood something beautiful, that nothing truly vanishes, not laughter, not sorrow, not even silence. It all becomes music, woven into the sky, waiting to return when the world is quiet enough to listen. Oz. The voice faded. The harp's glow softened. The air felt warm and still. Jake sighed contentedly. Man, this place is like a nap you don't want to wake up from. Finn smiled. Maybe that's what heaven feels like. Jake nodded.
Yeah, or maybe just
peace. They lay down on the soft cloud floor, side by side, gazing up at the golden light filtering through the high mist. The sky hummed gently around them. For a long while they said nothing, only listened. And then Finn whispered, "Do you think the world will ever stop singing?" Jake's reply came slow, sleepy. "Nah, even when it's quiet, it's just humming to itself." Pause. Above them the harp continued its endless rhythm. Below, the sea shimmered with the reflection of dreams. Between them stretched the thin, sacred thread that connected all things. The song of creation, still playing, still waiting. Finn drifted towards sleep, the sound wrapping him like a blanket. He dreamed of wings made of starlight, of voices made of wind, of all the forgotten songs finding their way home, and as he dreamed, the sky whispered through the clouds. Silence remembers. Pause. When Finn awoke, the harp was gone. The sky kingdom shimmered faintly, as though ready to dissolve back into the clouds. Jake stirred beside him.
Guess it's time to go, huh?
Finn nodded. Yeah, but the song's still here. Jake smiled.
And it's in you now, buddy. The wind rose gently, carrying them downward.
The clouds parted, revealing the land below, vast, mysterious, waiting. As they descended, the sound of the harp echoed faintly one last time, then faded into silence. But even that silence was full, deep, living, and kind. Pause. And so, guided by the breath of the world, Finn and Jake fell slowly back toward Earth, toward the next secret waiting in the quiet heart of Otor. The ocean stretched endlessly under a sky of liquid silver. The horizon shimmered, not quite real, not quite a dream. Finn and Jake stood at the water's edge, where the tide sighed softly against their boots. The air was filled with salt and old songs. Somewhere beneath the surface, an ancient temple waited, a relic from the first age of before names, before even the idea of kingdoms. Pause. They had followed a trail of quiet voices, echoes in the foam, that spoke of a place where silence remembers. Jake peered into the waves. "You sure it's down there, man? Looks deep." Finn smiled faintly. "Yeah, but we've gone deeper before." And with that, they stepped into the sea. The water closed around them like cool silk. Shafts of light streamed down from above, bending and rippling through the currents. Fish of impossible colors glided past, some translucent, some flickering like lanterns in fog. The deeper they swam, the quieter it became, until the sound of the world above faded completely, replaced only by the slow rhythm of their hearts and the pulse of the ocean itself. Pause. They reached a door of coral and pearl, vast, motionless, and humming with faint energy. It was older than memory, carved with symbols that looked like both music and mathematics. Finn placed his hand upon it, and the carvings flared softly as though recognizing him. The door opened inward, Inside lay a cathedral of water and light. Pillars of sea glass reached upward into shadow. At the center, suspended by strands of glowing kelp, floated a massive sphere, cracked, glowing faintly from within. It was not stone, nor metal, nor bone. It was something else. Something alive. Jake whispered, "It's breathing," and indeed, it was. The sphere pulsed gently, each heartbeat releasing a wave of soft light that rippled through the temple walls. As it glowed, images formed in the water around them, visions of Oo before Oo, a time when the seas were full of cities, when stars had names and humans still sang to them. And then came the war, and silence, and sleep pause. Finn felt the pull of those visions, not as an observer, but as a memory awakening within him. Was this what the world had lost? Was this why the earth hummed at dawn, why the valleys sang? Every ruin, every strange whisper of the land, all were fragments of the same dream, trying to piece itself back together. He floated closer to the sphere. "What are you?" he murmured. A voice answered, not in words, but in feeling. A warmth that entered his chest and settled there like sunlight under the skin. It said, "We are what remains when love outlives form. We are the dream of a world that refused to die." Jake's eyes widened as a school of glowing fish spiraled upward around them, each one leaving trails of silver that formed patterns, constellations, or perhaps maps. Finn reached out to touch one, and the light folded inward. The vision shifted again. He saw the Lich, far above, far away, standing in a field of stillness. But here, beneath the sea, even the darkness that was the Lich seemed to move in rhythm with the same pulse. All things, it seemed, shared one heartbeat. Light, dark, life, death.
Only their rhythm changed. Pause. Finn turned to Jake, his voice soft, distant. "Do you think the world's still healing?" Jake floated beside him, quiet for once. "Maybe it's like us, bro. You get hurt, you rest, you get better. Takes a while, but you don't stop trying."
The sphere glowed brighter, as if in agreement. A swirl of bubbles rose from its cracks, carrying faint echoes, laughter, rain, children singing, remnants of what once filled the world. And as the last bubble touched the surface above, the light dimmed. The temple sighed, and the hum began to fade. The vision was ending. Pause. They began their slow ascent. The water grew warmer, lighter, filled again with sound. When they broke the surface, night had fallen. The moon was full, a pale mirror upon the sea. The air was cool and sweet, tinged with salt and starlight. Jake exhaled, stretching across a drifting plank. "Dude, that was heavy." Finn nodded, watching the moon's reflection ripple across the waves. It was more than a place. It was like the sea itself was remembering. They floated in silence for a long time, letting the current carry them. Above them, constellations shimmered. Old, familiar shapes. One looked like a sword, another like a crown. And in the far distance, a comet burned faintly across the sky, just for a moment, before fading into the horizon. Finn whispered, "Maybe everything's connected, Jake. Maybe the sea dreams of the stars, and the stars dream of us." Jake chuckled sleepily. "That's deep, bro, like ocean deep." Finn smiled, letting the sound of the waves lull his mind into stillness. The night wrapped around them, vast and kind, and beneath it all, the pulse of that ancient temple continued, faint but steady, the heartbeat of a world still dreaming itself whole. Pause. As the two friends drifted toward shore, a single ripple spread outward, crossing the ocean like a sigh. Somewhere far away, in the land they would soon reach, a forest began to glow, trees shimmering as if listening to a distant melody. The world was stirring again, and with all its mysteries, was calling them onward. Pause. The forest was waiting when Finn and Jake returned to land. Mist hung low between the trees, coiling like memory made visible. Each branch dripped with dew that shimmered faintly in shades of green and violet, as though the moonlight had chosen to rest here. The air was thick with the scent of moss, rain-soaked, bark and something faintly electric, like the breath of a dream not yet forgotten. Pause. They followed a narrow trail that wound between towering roots. The silence wasn't empty here, it felt alive, layered, almost sentient. Every few steps, Finn could swear he heard faint laughter or the rustle of unseen footsteps. Jake's ears twitched. "Yo, bro, you hear that?" Finn nodded. It's like the forest is talking. And maybe it was. Wu had many kinds of life, the loud, the bright, the endlessly strange. But some life was quieter, older. This forest was such a place. They called it the Gleamwood, though few maps remembered that name. It was said to be a crossroads of dreams, where the thoughts of sleeping beings wandered when they drifted too far from their waking minds. The air shimmered faintly as they walked. Sometimes the trees shifted subtly when you weren't looking, roots curling and uncurling, leaves whispering to one another. It felt neither safe nor dangerous, only vast. Vast like a memory too large for one mind to hold. Pause as they ventured. Deeper, a faint glow appeared between the trunks. A soft, golden light pulsing like a heartbeat. They followed it until the path opened into a clearing. At its center stood an enormous tree, older than the sea, older than the sun. Its bark was translucent in places, and within its trunk shapes moved slowly. Faces, dreams, fragments of time suspended like leaves in amber. Jake blinked. "Whoa, it's full of people?" Finn stepped closer. "Not people," he murmured. "Dreams." The great tree exhaled, or seemed to, and the mist swirled around them, forming gentle spirals. The air was warm now, humming with energy, and in that hum Finn felt something stir. A familiarity, like the sound of his own heart beating from far away. Pause. A voice came, soft, neither male nor female, but more like wind speaking through hollow wood. "Do you remember, child of the last dawn?" Finn froze. The words weren't spoken aloud. They bloomed directly in his mind. "Do you remember the time before your name? The age when the dream of man still lingered in the soil?" He couldn't answer. Not because he didn't want to, but because his body felt filled with light. Visions poured into him, the oceans that sang in colors, the stars that wept rivers of glass, cities of metal and memory buried beneath the laughter of trees. And at the center of it all, a single seed, small, ordinary, sleeping. Jake reached out and placed a paw on Finn's shoulder. "Hey, you good?" Finn blinked, tears he didn't understand welling in his eyes. "Yeah, I just saw something. Something old." Pause. The voice continued. "Every dream that has ever been dreamt returns here eventually. We are the keepers of their echoes. The songs you forgot. The promises you made to the wind." Finn felt the meaning of it rather than the words. That this tree and the forest around it were not merely alive. They were the memory of life itself. When mortals dream, when creatures sleep, their thoughts drift here, taking root among the moss and moonlight. That was why this place felt familiar, because every heart at some point had wandered through it. Jake looked up at the branches. So, what happens if you wake up all the dreams at once? The wind paused, the forest stilled, and then came the reply, soft as a sigh. Then the world begins again. Finn sat at the base of the great tree. He placed his palm against its bark, feeling the slow, rhythmic pulse, not unlike the sphere beneath the waves. A pattern was forming. First, the valley that sang, then the sea that remembered. Now the forest that dreamed. Each one was a part of the same being. The living memory of Ooh itself, he whispered. You're alive, aren't you? The whole world. You're trying to remember who you were. The tree's glow deepened. Leaves
rained down in a slow, spiraling motion, each one catching light like a droplet of starlight before fading into mist.
Finn thought he heard a whisper then, not from the tree, but from within himself. And so are you. Pause. He closed his eyes, letting the forest's warmth surround him. He remembered the countless adventures, the laughter, the chaos, and beneath all that, the strange sadness that sometimes clung to the edges of beauty. He wondered if even joy was a kind of remembering, the soul's way of recognizing the truth, however briefly. Jake stretched and yawned.
Man, this place is cozy, like dangerously cozy.
I could nap here for 100 years. Finn smiled faintly. Maybe you already have. They both laughed softly, the sound echoing through the mist like ripples in a dream. And the forest responded. Branches swaying, roots shifting slightly beneath them, as though amused. The night deepened, and the stars above bent closer. Some of them flickered strangely, as though they too were remembering. Finn lay back against the moss, the glow of the great tree painting the air in gold. His eyes grew heavy, but his mind remained open, calm, vast, aware. He felt the whole world breathing through him. He felt the pulse of oceans, the laughter of valleys, the whisper of time. And then he heard a final thought from the voice of the gleamwood. When the dreamer understands the dream, the world can finally rest. The light dimmed, the mist grew still, and sleep came easily. Pause. But before consciousness faded entirely, Finn saw something flicker in the air above, a faint, crown-like shape of pure light. It hovered for a heartbeat, then vanished. He didn't know what it meant, not yet, but he felt its promise that all things were moving toward something whole. He drifted deeper into sleep, the sound of the forest like a soft lullaby. And somewhere far beyond, in the empty black between worlds, something ancient stirred and listened. Morning came slowly in the gleamwood, like a thought unfolding. The mist lifted, revealing beams of pale gold that shimmered through the canopy. Every droplet of dew caught the light like a gem, and for a moment the forest seemed made entirely of glass. Finn awoke beneath the ancient dream tree, his breath calm, his body weightless. Jake was still asleep, curled up at his side, his snores soft and rhythmic. Finn rose quietly, feeling the hush of the place settle into his bones. The voice of the forest had faded, but its meaning lingered in him, a warmth that was neither word nor thought. And somewhere inside that silence, a new sound began, a faint, crystalline ringing, like a bell heard through water. He followed it. Os. The path led down a narrow corridor of silver bark, where the air shimmered faintly as though reality itself were growing thin. The ringing grew louder, gentle, rhythmic, calling without urgency. Soon he came to a clearing filled with still water. It wasn't a pond. It was a perfect mirror, so smooth that even the wind refused to touch it. Finn knelt beside it and peered into his reflection. But what he saw there was not himself, Oz. Another Finn looked back, older, quieter, dressed in armor that gleamed faintly with starlight. His eyes were soft and ancient, and when he spoke, the words seemed to echo both outward and inward. "Hello," said the reflection. Finn blinked.
"You're me?" "In a way," the reflection replied.
"I'm what remains when everything else has been remembered." The younger Finn stared, trying to understand.
"Are you from another world?"
The reflection smiled faintly.
"No, I am the space between them." Pause, the mirror rippled. Images unfolded across its surface. Ooh, as it was. Ooh, as it had been. And ooh, as it could be.
Cities of crystal, kingdoms of dust, moments that never came to pass, but still lingered in the folds of possibility. Every timeline shimmered there, layered atop one another, like waves in an eternal sea. "Each choice," said the reflection, "creates an echo. Each echo becomes a world. The multiverse isn't a map, Finn. It's a heartbeat. Every beat is another reality, pulsing in rhythm with your soul." Finn touched the water. It was cool, impossibly deep. His reflection rippled and multiplied, fracturing into endless versions of himself. The boy, the warrior, the wanderer, the king. All of them looked back at him with quiet recognition. Jake's voice broke the spell.
"Yo, dude, you talking to your own face again?" Finn turned.
Jake had woken up, stretching in the morning light, his fur golden and drowsy. He wandered over, peered into the mirror, and whistled low. "Whoa, there's like 50 of you in there."
"That's trippy," Finn smiled faintly.
"It's more than that."
"I think it's showing all the worlds that could be." Jake's reflection grinned back at him, taller, more heroic, with eyes that glowed like suns.
"Dang," Jake muttered. "That guy looks like he eats stars for breakfast." They both laughed softly. And the sound, that simple, human joy, sent ripples across the water. Yes. The older reflection spoke again, its voice a low hum. "When the first dreamer fell asleep, the world was born. But when the last dreamer awakens, the world will return to silence. Until then, every moment, every friendship, every heartbeat is a reflection of that eternal dreaming." Finn felt something tighten in his chest. Not fear, but awe.
"So this place, this forest—"
"It's part of that dream?" The reflection nodded.
"Everything is. Even you, even me."
"The question is not whether the dream is real, but whether you are ready to remember your part in it." The mirror began to darken, as if clouds were passing beneath the surface. Shadows moved, vast and slow, and Finn realized that somewhere deep inside the reflection, something was watching. He saw the faint outline of the Lich. Its form was not monstrous here. It was still, silent, a void made of thought. The reflection said softly, "Every light casts a shadow.
"Even love, even life."
To remember the world fully, you must remember its darkness too." Pause. Finn's breath slowed. The image of the Lich flickered, and for a brief moment he saw not a creature of destruction, but of grief. A being that had simply seen too much ending and could no longer bear to begin again. He felt a pang of compassion, unexpected, warm, quiet. He whispered, maybe even the Lich just wants to rest." The reflection's eyes shone. "Perhaps that is what all of us want." The mirror lightened once more. The images faded, and Finn found himself kneeling beside still water again, the morning breeze finally daring to touch its surface. Pause. Jake nudged him gently.
Hey, you okay?
Finn nodded.
Yeah, I think I learned something. I'm not sure what it means yet, but it feels true. They stood in silence, watching the sunlight scatter across the pond.
It was then that Finn noticed something glimmering just below the surface, a shard of glass, faintly glowing. He reached in and drew it out. It was smooth, transparent, warm to the touch. Within it shimmered faint traces of light, tiny worlds, reflections of reflections. He slipped it into his pocket without thinking. Jake tilted his head. Souvenir? Finn smiled. Maybe a key. Pause. As they turned to leave, the wind changed direction. It carried with it the faint sound of distant bells, and Finn could have sworn he heard his reflection whisper one last time. All mirrors open when the heart is ready to see. The path before them shimmered again, leading away from the clearing. They followed it without question, their steps soft upon the moss. The forest seemed to exhale as they passed, and the air grew lighter, like waking from a dream but keeping its peace. Pause. By dusk, they emerged from the trees. Ahead lay a stretch of fields bathed in twilight. Fireflies rose from the grass in spiraling patterns, each one blinking in quiet rhythm, as though marking the pulse of unseen time. The stars began to appear, first one, then another, until the entire sky was alight. Finn looked up, still thinking about the mirror, the reflection, the worlds within worlds. He wondered how many versions of himself were out there, laughing, fighting, sleeping, healing. He wondered if all of them were dreaming the same dream. Jake broke the silence. Hey, Finn, yeah? You ever think maybe the universe is just one big nap? Finn laughed softly. Maybe, but it's a nice nap. They walked on, the sound of crickets mingling with the sigh of the wind. And though the path ahead was dark, it felt gentle, like the hush before a lullaby. Pause. Somewhere behind them, deep in the gleamwood, the mirror pond shimmered once more. For a heartbeat, two reflections appeared upon its surface, Finn and Jake, smiling, before fading back into stillness. And in that silence, the forest whispered to itself, remembering everything it had ever dreamed. Pause. The morning light spilled across the hills, soft and forgiving. It washed over fields of wildflowers, across the bones of old towers and forgotten roads, until it touched Finn and Jake, walking side by side. The air was cool, the sky the color of memory, pale blue with threads of silver mist drifting through it. Jake yawned. Man, I could go for pancakes right about now. Finn laughed quietly.
Yeah, pancakes sound perfect. They said nothing else for a while.
The path wound downward through the quiet folds of Ooh, where the ruins of adventure had become part of the landscape. Half-buried swords, trees grown from the metal of airships, rivers that once carried the songs of heroes. It was peaceful now, not empty, but full of the kind of stillness that hums beneath all things when the world begins to heal. Peace. A light breeze stirred the tall grass. Somewhere in the distance, a bird sang a few notes, sweet and uncertain, as if testing whether morning had truly arrived. Finn stopped and looked back once more. The forest behind them was already fading into haze, its edge lost in dreamlike shimmer. Feels like we've been walking through someone's memory, he said softly. Jake stretched.
Yeah, dude.
Maybe it was ours. They kept walking. Each step felt lighter now, like the earth itself was gently lifting them towards something beyond the horizon. As they walked, the air grew warm and golden. The scent of honey and sunlight drifted through the valley. And for the first time, Finn noticed something. The world was quietly rearranging itself. Shapes bending, lines softening. The colors weren't fading. They were blending, melting into a single glowing tone, like the moment between waking and dreaming. Jake looked around.
Finn? You seeing this? Yeah, Finn whispered. I think...
The dream's ending. Pause. The ground beneath them began to shimmer, not breaking apart, but dissolving, turning into threads of light that stretched upward into the endless sky. Each thread carried memories, laughter, tears, the rush of a sword swing, the warmth of a hug, the calm of a sunset. They weren't vanishing. They were returning to something larger, the quiet ocean of consciousness that had always been there. Jake squinted at the horizon. Where does all this go? Finn smiled faintly.
Back to the place it came from. He touched his chest, where the Lich's light still pulsed faintly beneath his skin. It's like every story we ever lived is a ripple in some bigger dream.
And when we stop moving, the ripples settle. But the water stays, Jake chuckled softly. Dude, you're getting all poetic on me again, Finn grinned. Guess that's what happens when you talk to mirrors and ancient death spirit. Pause. The light deepened, becoming warm and infinite. They reached a meadow filled with tall, soft grass that shimmered like gold in the glow. In the center of the meadow stood a familiar sight, a small tree growing alone, with branches reaching toward the endless dawn. Its leaves were green and gold, its roots wound deep into the soil of every world that had ever existed. Finn and Jake stopped before it. It was the same tree they'd once camped beneath when they were younger, when the world had felt new and boundless. Jake lay down beneath it, sighing. Man, feels good to rest under this old fella again. Finn sat beside him. Yeah, it really does. For a while, neither spoke. The wind whispered through the leaves, carrying fragments of voices, laughter from old adventures, songs from friends long gone, the echo of stories that had ended, yet still breathed quietly in memory. Finn tilted his head back, watching the sunlight dance across the canopy.
Jake? Yeah, buddy? Do you ever wonder if maybe all of this, us, the stars, is just one big dream?
Like maybe someone somewhere dreamed us into being. Jake's eyes stayed closed. Sure, but even if we are a dream, dude, we're a good one. Pause, Finn smiled. And as he did, the air grew still again, not empty, but full, like the pause before a song's last note. He felt something stir deep within him, a gentle presence like the voice of the forest returning but softer now, not speaking to him, but through him. All that dreams must awaken, the voice whispered, and all that awakens must dream again. Finn breathed deeply, letting the words settle. He realized then that this world, his adventures, his fears and triumphs, had never been about endings or beginnings. It had always been about remembering what it felt like to be alive.
To love, to hope.
To rest, pause. The light around them began to shift, melting into tones of twilight and dawn all at once. The stars above brightened, forming constellations that looked strangely familiar. The Ice King's crown, Princess Bubblegum's tower, Jake's stretchy form wrapping around a moon. Each star blinked gently like a heartbeat in the vastness. Jake opened one eye. Heh, looks like the whole gang's up there. Finn laughed quietly. Yeah, maybe they're dreaming us right now. Jake smiled, eyes heavy. Then I hope they dream us good. He yawned, curling into the grass. Night, dude. Finn looked at his friend, this being of endless humor and warmth, and felt an ache of gratitude, so deep it didn't hurt. It just was, he whispered. Night, Jake. Then he lay back beside him. The grass swayed gently. The tree whispered. The stars hummed. And for the first time in a long time, Finn let himself drift. Not away from the world, but into it. He felt the pulse of everything, the tree, the stars, Jake's breathing, his own heartbeat, all moving in rhythm.
One dream.
One endless breathing dream pause. The voice returned once more, the same ancient tone that had guided them through every silence. Sleep now, Finn the human, for even heroes must rest. The story continues always, but not always awake. Finn's eyes closed. The world around him folded into light, not fading, not ending, but transforming. The fields became sea. The sea became sky. The sky became breath. And the breath became stillness. The last thing he felt was warmth. The warmth of friendship, of love, of a story well told. Then, like the first sigh of dawn, he dreamed. Pause. Long, soft silence. The dream shimmered, infinite, gentle, whole. And so, dear dreamer, as Finn and Jake rest beneath the tree that remembers all worlds, the story drifts into silence. The land of Oo sleeps again, not gone, not forgotten, but breathing softly in the spaces between stars. Every light we've followed tonight, every echo of laughter, every flicker of shadow, Masu, was part of that same quiet miracle, the dream of being. And perhaps when you close your eyes, you too will step into that same meadow, where the grass hums with memory and two friends sleep beneath the endless dawn. So rest now, let go of the noise of waking life. The dream of Oo continues, and you too are part of it. Pause, whisper soft. Good night, traveller.
May your sleep be deep.
And your dreams remember you kindly.